Let's make this really nice smear or speedline effects in Blender. This is gonna be really easy and a detailed tutorial even a beginner can follow. Before we can start, I'm gonna mention that I am using Blender version 4.5. To get the Blender version 4.5, simply search for Blender and here click on the download. After that, you don't get the Blender version 4.5 directly. For that, you have to head to the daily builds section right here, and then you will get the option to download the 4.5 version for Mac and Windows, whichever shitty operating system you have. Now let's head back to the Blender. To start with, we are gonna delete everything by selecting everything and press X and delete. So to make things convenient for you so that you don't get confused as for what I am pressing and what is happening, I'm gonna turn on my screencast keys. If you see in the left bottom corner, you will be able to see what I am pressing, the N multiple times and okay. Now to start with, we would need an object. So for the object, I'm gonna spawn it or summon it using this Blender kit. Link is available in the description. Just go to the Blender kit side and here you have to just download the Blender kit. It will already give you a simple step how to install it. Just download it, go to edit preferences, click on add-on, and then you can install an add-on. In Blender version 4.5, you won't be able to see this install button. For that, it will be something like this. If you go to the preferences and if you click on add-ons, you will see this drop down called this install from disk. Then you can select the downloaded file. It's easy as that. To get started, we just have to search for a kunai, and I will see only one result because there's only one kunai in this Blender kit. So I'll click this and a kunai has been summoned. For now, I don't want this empty to be controlling our mesh like this. So I'll just press X and delete it. Now, before we can start working on this, there is one thing that you should know. Parts of this object is actually separate. First, combine the cloth part, which is this one. So press Shift and click select everything. Then I will press Ctrl J to join them, and then I can press H to hide them so that we can combine the rest of them. If I try to combine these rest of them, it will not combine, as the reason is because there's a modifier applied on this sharp part which is here. So I'll just get rid of this modifier, and then if I try to join them, it will work like a charm. Okay, now I can press Alt H to bring back our cloth part. Now before we can get started with it, I'll scale my kunai a little bit, something like that. It should be good enough for this scale. Now after doing that, what we are going to do is to get started with the effect. We'll just divide the panel from the top right here. You will see this type of icon. So I'm just gonna drag this out and then I can just divide the panel. Now I'll switch this one to GeoNode editor. Don't get afraid of GeoNodes. This is gonna be really simple and easy. I will explain everything in detail. So I'll just click on this new button. It will create GeoNode system for me. So the first step in our GeoNode is gonna be really simple. We are going to use a node which is the distribute points on faces. If I click and drag it in between, you can see nothing is happening. Let's see what is the reason. So let's try increasing the density. As you can see, these points are really big. The reason is really simple. That is because we haven't applied the scale on our kunai. So if we turn off the modifier by going to the modifier section and click on this display icon, and then we can just press Ctrl A to apply the scale and then turn back the modifier again, you will see points are spread it out perfectly. I think we have scaled it a little bit too much. I can just scale it down a bit. Now why are we using distribute points on faces? We can just later replace them with the lines that you saw in the effect. For now, I will set the density to 50 because that is too much right now. The first problem is that it is summoning the points on every face of our kunai. What we have seen in the effect is only at the edges of our mesh. So we want the points to be summoned only on the edges of our kunai right here. And we also want it to change around as we move around our camera. But if we change around with this like this, the points should be right here according to the camera. Points will shift to this direction. So how can we achieve that effect? We are gonna add a camera into the scene. So let's add a camera by pressing Shift A and click camera. Now we can go directly into the camera by clicking on this icon, and if we click on this lock icon, after that if we move around anywhere, we can just snap, our camera will follow it as well. So I'm gonna place it something like this for now, unlock it. I'm gonna divide the panel right here as well. I want to use this panel to just move around my object, and the other panel is just to see the render view. So we are going to place it something like this. So to achieve that effect, we have the option for this selection, which will help us distribute points on only the edges. So first of all, let's bring in our camera. With this camera, make sure to set it to relative. We'll use the location of our camera and use our vector math node, which will be subtract, then connect the position. We are doing this to get the distance between our kunai and the camera. So to see how it actually looks, what we can do is press Ctrl Shift on this group input and then Ctrl Shift on this subtract, and you can see this is the kind of result we are getting. Now how are we gonna use this to get our perfect result? For that, there is a simple node. If we just drag this out from here and search for dot product, click like this. For the other value, use normal data of our mesh and connect this normal to this dot product. You can see there are some black edges at our mesh, but they are not pretty perfect. We have to make them a bit smoother, so we can duplicate this node right in between and set this to normalize. This will make them a little bit blurry and smoothen them out. As you can see, it is more smoother than before. That was all it needed to get this edge. Now the problem is, if we use this data and connect it to the selection, the points are not gonna summon as we wanted. Let's just get rid of this viewer as well. As you can see, it is not working right now. As you can see, the white part is only where the points will summon. To change that around, we are gonna use a map range just after this. This will help us to flip around the result that we are getting right now. If we flip around this to minimum and max, like I will set this to 1 and this one to 0, nothing is happening right now. Let's see what we are actually getting right now. As you can see, it is not that perfect right now. We should change around with these two values to make sure that the between part is all black. So let's just reduce down the max value and it should get us something like this. Now the front part is almost black. Let's just see where the points are summoning. So we can just click on this icon to turn off this viewer, and we still are not getting that result. The reason is that, as you can see, they are summoning on the back side. So let's just turn on our viewer. It was working fine for front but not for the back part. To fix that, there is another way we can do it. So we can use a color ramp in between, just like that. Connect this to the viewer as well so we can see. And if you go to the back part, what we simply have to do, click on this plus icon, so it will automatically add another perfectly in between, because this black part is this area, this white part is in the middle, and this white part is again at the end. So if we change the end one to the black, you can see it changing it to black, and the only middle part white remains. Let's just make it all the way white so it looks perfect, and now we get the result we wanted. Also change around with the minimum and maximum to get the desired result. So I'll set it to something like this, and now we can get rid of this viewer, and you can see the points are only summoning at the edges. That's what we wanted. If we move around the camera, so let's just lock our camera and move around our camera as well. You can see it is working perfectly. You might have to fine tune around somewhere like this area, so you have to just change around with the value. Now also let's bring in back our original mesh as well. So what we can do is just duplicate this group input and use a join geometry just after that, like here, and then we can join our original mesh in back like that, and our original mesh is here. So we can see exactly what is happening. Now we can replace them with a line that I have mentioned before, but before that, let's change this method of distribution to Poisson disk and also increase the mass density to 50 again. To replace them, I will use a node which is instance on point and drag it in between. Now nothing is visible because it is looking for instance to replace these points. For the instance, I can use a cylinder, which is a primitive, and then connect this mesh to the instances, and now we can see this. Let's reduce down the radius to something like this. This should be good enough, and the depth should be around 1 meter. That would be also good enough for me, and it will look something like this right now. You can also reduce down the vertices. I will reduce it to around 6 because the more the vertices, the heavier your scene will get. I don't want it to be like that. Now we have two big problems right here. Their tip is not at the mesh. We can fix that later as well. And also the direction they are going towards is looking really weird. We want them to like face towards a particular direction. So for example, let's add an empty to our scene. Like this is a plain empty I've added. I want them to rotate towards this plain empty right there. So one of their tip is at the mesh and one tip is facing towards the empty. So let's get back to GeoNode editor. This is always happening to me. So if I click this mesh and our GeoNode is back. Also, let's click on this pin icon so it doesn't go away after I click on anything else. So the first thing we want is to bring that empty because we want it to look towards that. Also make sure to set it to relative. Now what we are going to do is use the same trick that we have used before. So drag out the location and search for the subtract. We already have subtract right here, and we'll subtract what you know. Yes, you are correct. We'll subtract the position. After subtracting the position, what we just simply have to do is we have to connect this to the rotation, but it is not gonna work like that. It will give us a weird result. Reason being, we are feeding in a vector value and this is an Euler value. To make it able to read, we can use a node which is align rotation to vector, and if we connect this to vector, it will give us out the rotation and we can connect it to the rotation. And now look at that. They are all looking towards that empty. Wherever this empty go, they will follow it. How cool is that? Now to fix the other problem, that is the cylinder tip is not at the proper place. So for that I will use a transform geometry node just after the cylinder, and here what we simply have to do is to change the z value. As you can see, it is working properly. So how much value we should change? You can get the answer from this depth value. So our depth value is 2 meter. This cylinder is 2 meter long. To bring it at the center, we just have to divide this value by 2 and feed it to the z value right here. So if the value is 2, I'll press 2 divided by 2. That will give us the answer, which is 1. For example, if the depth was something like this, I can just copy this value, paste it right here, divide it by 2, and that will give you the answer. It will always be at the tip. So let's just change it back to 2 and this one to 1. I know you are getting bored with this summoning cylinder, playing around with cylinder, but let's see some real magic. So let's head back to the distribute points on faces. We see this seed option. If we change the seed, you can see them jumping around. So what we have to do is search for a scene time node, and if we connect this scene time to this seed, make sure you're connecting the frame. And if we connect this and then go to the 0th frame here and hit that spacebar, you will see this kind of result. Now one more thing that I would like to fix is they are all having a same length. To fix that, what we can just simply do is go to the instance on point, and here in the scale option, I'm gonna use a random value node. Make sure you change the random value to a vector, and then you can connect it back in like that. And now what other thing you have to change is you can change around with the minimum value you want it to be. So I'm gonna set it to 0.03 or something like that, as our max value will be 1. Reason being because our now original scale was 1, and now it looks way better than before. We have only just started. It's gonna get even better. Now let's switch to the material preview, and if you look at them, they don't look that really good. Let's give them the same material as our original mesh. So I'm gonna use a set material node right here. Let's just give them both the same material, which will be this ring thing. I don't know why is that called that ring. So now they have the same material, but it is not really blending well with our mesh right here. But we have a new node in Blender version 4.5 with which we can blend this mesh to our geometry, and that node is called set mesh normal, and drag it just before the set material. You can see something weird is happening to these points. So let's just change this to the tangent space right now. We have to feed right here in the normal data of our kunai mesh. So we get this mesh right here. To get our normal data, we'll drag this out, search for sample nearest surface, which will fetch the normal data. To fetch the normal data, we have to search for normal and connect this normal to the value right here. Make sure to change it to vector because the normal value is in vector. Now it has brought the normal data of our kunai. Now we can just simply connect this value to the custom normals. Right now the result is very weird. The reason is that because we have not used the realize instance node. This will help each of these cylinder realize themselves as a single entity, and if we do that, and you can see it melting just like that. Now the next 3 major steps are gonna give it a game changer result. So the first thing that we can do is, so the data that we have created just before, we can use this data to displace the only geometry at the edges of our mesh right there. So we can just duplicate this, bring it forward right here where we have used our group input as a separate object to bring in back our mesh. As you remember, we can have displacement on these white edges. So for that to happen, we can use a simple set position node like this, and we can directly connect this to the offset, and this kind of weird result will happen. But we don't want this. What we actually want is a noise texture, using this noise texture with a vector math node like that, and we can just connect it to this vector math node. After that, we can change it to multiply. Also right now the result is way too high. First, let's just duplicate this multiply and change this to the scale. Using the scale, we can just reduce down this effect. So if we reduce the scale, we can see this effect is also reducing. Also, let's uncheck this normalized, as it is not giving us accurate result, and also increase the scale to like 200. Now at the last, I want to change it to 40. After changing to 40, we get this W value, and you can see it dancing like that. And we can just type hash rem divided by 24, and that should do for us. By giving this value, it will continuously animate the W value like that. You could have also connected a scene time node using the frame, but I would prefer this one. To get the effect even more smoother, what you can do is just after group input, we can use a subdivide mesh node, and you can increase the levels as per your liking. If you increase the level, you will be able to see the effect too much, and you can just reduce it down if you would like to. This will give it an effect that the object is really moving fast. Now the next step is gonna add some outlines to our object, which will make it really give a look of that in anime. For that, again, we'll just use this group input again, and we can connect it back into join geometry right here. Trick we are going to do is use a set position node again, but this time we are going to connect the normal data to it. So what the normal is gonna do is move the mesh of our object, make it move it outwards. Let me just show you directly, and it has moved outward. But right now this is way too powerful, so again, to reduce down the effect, we can again drag this out, use a scale, and we can reduce down the scale like this. So I will let it be around 0.03. That is perfect enough. Of course, you can again use the subdivide mesh to get even more geometry. The trick that we are going to play is just after set position, we are again going to use a set material. All the magic is going to happen inside the material. So right now we don't want any material on it. We are going to create a special material for it. So let's go to the material tab, and here click on this plus icon, and now we can click on new, and I will name this outline and enter, and also make sure to select that here in the set material as well. Now divide the panel from here and switch it to the shader editor. We don't want this principal BSDF. We are going to use a transparent BSDF and then a diffuse BSDF. We're going to set the diffuse to the black because this is gonna be the outline. We're going to connect both of them using a mix shader. So the top one will be inside and the bottom one will be the outline. If connected back the mix shader, we get something like this. That is not the result that we wanted, right? Let me get rid of these arrows. This is also looking good, but we can make it even better. So we can use a funnel node which is directly available in the shader editor, connect it to the factor, and we get the outline we wanted. And what you might notice right now is now it is not very much like melting with those speed lines. And what more trick we can do is use a join geometry, connect it to this, connect it back in, and we can have our speed lines connected to this black outline thingy as well, and our speed line will have also the black outline, and it will look really amazing just like this. To change the thickness of these black outline, you can just go back inside the normal. Just after the normal, you will see the scale. If you change the scale, you can change around with the thickness of the outline. As you can see, the thickness of the outline is changing. One more thing you can do is just select this mesh and move it like this, so it looks like it's moving really fast. I think the density is too high. I can just reduce it down, something like that. That looks better than before, I guess. Now I'm really loving that we have created so far. We can apply the same thing on this cloth. Let's make sure to apply the scale on it and rotation on it. So I can just click on this object, go to the modifiers, get rid of this solidify, just apply this. Apply a geometry node, and I will select the node that we created, and you can see this is looking weird for it. Before making any changes to it, I'll click on this icon before, so that it becomes a single user copy, and whatever we do to it, it doesn't affect the main kunai. So let's also just unpin this geonode system, select the one with the 002 that we have just duplicated, and I'll change the material to white material right here, and you can see how cool that is looking. I think I will reduce the noise for this a little bit. Yeah, and as you can see, it looks so cool for this one. And now the final thing you guys would love to already do, ultimate magic trick. Before that, make sure you subscribe to this channel. So what we just have to do is switch this tab to the compositor, this one, and make sure to click on use nodes, and we have these nodes right here. So the first thing that we have to do is go to this above right here in the shading. We will switch to the compositor and make sure it is set to camera. And now the magic is just we have to search for a node which is Kuwahara and drag it in between like that, and you can see it is melting even further. I mean, it looks kind of a bit too harsh. I can reduce down the size, something like 3, change around with the settings, get the desired result. Let's also put something in the background as well, and we can have a better look at our final result, which is this. Now you can just move around with this empty, and the effect will follow it wherever it is going. Also, before we end this really good and nicely made tutorial by me, I've created another version of this effect where we don't have to create this empty, so that we have to always control where the effect is going towards. The advanced version that I've created is all simulated one, and it looks really awesome. So if you want that one, that is available on my Gumroad page, but that is a paid one. So if you feel like buying it, that will really help me, and it will support my channel as well. Let's just end this tutorial right here, as I felt like this was really an amazing thing to share with you guys. Also, if you get stuck anywhere while making the same, please do drop a comment down below. I will try to help you guys out as soon as I can. So I'll see you in my next tutorial. Ta-ta!